Hi, I'm Fletcher Rhoden, and this is Quotes and Quips. Today, words of wisdom from Cyrano de Bergerac. Or is it Edmond Rostand? Well, one thing you know for sure is that Quotes and Quips is brought to you by my website, FletcherRhoden.com. That's where you'll find links to things like my authors page on Amazon. That's where you can buy my books in paperback, or for Kindle, or in audiobook format. You'll also find a link to my Spotify artist page where you can download my music. In 2024, I had a 4-album series called Quadrilogy. And in 2025, I have a brand new pop album called I'm Possible. Now you can download these and my other albums at Spotify or at any of your favorite download sites, all across the internet. But at my website, there's free music you can only get there. So check it out. Okay, today we revisit words of wisdom from one of our friends of the show, Cyrano de Bergerac, the fictive and fabled swordsman and poet of the French Gascon, created by Edmond Rostand in the great play Cyrano de Bergerac. I've referenced Cyrano de Bergerac before, and I've even quoted him. I try to stay away from quotes from fictive characters, but sometimes they're just that good. Who knows, maybe in the future I'll do a Quotes and Quips classic films series. But until then, let's look at another great quote from Cyrano de Bergerac, who tells us this: I wear my adornments only upon my soul. I wear my adornments only upon my soul. Now, if you want to take the quote to the end of the sentence, I'll throw this in as a bonus. The full quote goes like this: I wear my adornments only upon my soul, cloaked with my own good name and crowned with the white plume of freedom. But that's a bit long. And I think the second part of it really only supports the beginning. I wear my adornments only upon my soul. So this speaks of a lot of things. Cyrano is a classic and flawed, tragically flawed character. He is courageous, romantic, intelligent, physically capable, skilled, but he has this one flaw, and that's that he has a very great long nose, and it gives him terrible physical insecurity, which he makes up for with grandiose narcissism, really. In a lot of ways, you could look at Cyrano in a lot of ways and proclaim him to be the villain of the story. But clearly he's not. He is a romantic hero with a fatal flaw. And it is not the nose, it's vanity. So, for him to say, I wear my adornments only on my soul, only upon my soul, it's an answer to a question. He says he's challenged by the royal guard. And the guy says, look at this scarecrow. He has no ribbons. He has no medals, not even a pair of gloves. Cyrano says, that's true. I wear my adornments only upon my soul. Later, he uses the gloves reference to make a challenge to the guy, and then the Comte de Guiche, he winds up. Anyway, so Cyrano de-emphasized clearly the ornaments of external attractiveness. Because he considered himself so ugly, he knew he could never participate or compete in the world in that way. So he never tried to be elegant. He never tried to be distinguished in that way, popular, successful, well-known, often seen. To see and be seen was not what Cyrano wanted. He did not want to be seen because he knew himself or believed himself to be ugly. So when he says, I wear my adornments only upon my soul, what he is saying is that I discard any matter of external attractiveness and emphasize only what is internal. For me, it is the beauty of the spirit, the beauty of the soul which shines through, which must shine through. Because in his case, he considered himself a beautiful soul trapped in the body of an ugly man. It's interesting to note that his great obsession in life is his love for Roxane, who is his cousin, actually. And it's because she's so beautiful that he loves her. Because her soul is really quite flippant and superficial early in the play. She arcs. She's a character who arcs, who goes from superficial, she loves a beautiful young man called Christian. She loves him only because she saw him and he is beautiful. She knows nothing of his soul. She knows Cyrano's soul very well, but she is not in love with him. So her soul does not match the depth of Cyrano's, not nearly. Cyrano loves her anyway, because she's so beautiful. In the play he says, in these eyes of mine, the woman most beautiful. So for a guy who says, I reject the ornaments of superficial attractiveness, such as ribbons and medals and gloves, and who demands to be taken for the content of his character and not the color of his skin, to paraphrase Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., many centuries later, he falls for the gal who's the hottie hot stuff, who he's always loved, even as a kid. He loved her when he was a child, and she was a child, and he always loved her, and that's it. But it's not because she's such a deep soul, because she really wasn't. She only learned to be a deep soul through the experience of coming to love Cyrano through the letters and through the appearance that Christian showed to her. Christian spoke the words that Cyrano told him to speak in order to win her love. And he believes that these are the sentiments of the handsome man. And so she is seduced. But it's really by the words that she is seduced, not by his handsomeness. And this is the lesson she learns later in life. She doesn't know it immediately, but she learns it later. So Cyrano is not really as much attuned away from the cosmetic as we think. He is as touched by a pretty face as many a man or woman would be. I dare say a pretty face opens doors no matter who's standing on the other side of the door. But that's the irony of it. Because Cyrano really did wear his adornments only upon his soul. He did not gravitate toward the glamorous or the glorious in his community. He was offered opportunity, which he turned down. He was offered fame, which he turned away from. He was more comfortable being alone in the dark because that's where he felt most comfortable. Or on the battlefield, surrounded by grim death. That bony skeleton, grinning at him. There he was a man of power. But in society, despite his great eloquence and skill and artistry as a playwright, he felt out of place. He was a Sigma. You can read more about that in my book, Tracking the Lone Wolf, the Sigma at work, at home, and at play. He danced to the tune of his own drum. He rejected friendships and community. Unfortunately for him, it was because he felt that he didn't deserve them. Like a lot of Sigmas, he had the capacity to lead. He was looked upon as a leader by others, but he did not demand leadership. He was much more humble in his ambitions. So a classic Sigma was Cyrano. And he gives us so many great quotes too, you know. But when he says, "I wear my adornments only upon my soul," that's a real Sigma concept. That's a Sigma talking. That's a person who doesn't have to make a show of it. That's a person who, if they know in their heart that they've done well, then that's where their laurels are kept. Not on the outside. Cyrano says, a hothouse flower becomes very beautiful but loses its fragrance, because when forced to show all, it soon becomes all show. Cyrano wasn't about that. Cyrano was much more about the fragrance than the appearance of the flower. But it was largely a matter, again, of his insecurity. And it was a fatal flaw which robbed him of his happy ending in life. He had a glorious, tragic ending, but he could have been much happier for many years had he not been a victim of his own vanity, which he was. Despite the fact that he wore his adornments only upon his soul, I think it speaks more to the fact that that's where he felt the true adornments were to be found. Despite the example that his fictive life sets for us, wherein it was an obsession with beauty and ugliness and the superficial things which led him astray, which prevented his true ascendance. In that way, Cyrano is an existential failure, because he could not identify the beauty within himself beyond a certain point. There was a certain point at which perhaps he's the existential hero because he insisted on defining himself as a monster, despite the fact that the world would have identified him as a hero had he given them the chance. But he had his heart fixed on being an outcast, and that's what he was. So I correct myself to say that Cyrano was truly the existential hero, but a tragic one. One who lives and dies a monster unnecessarily because of his obsession with physical beauty. And if we learn anything from Cyrano de Bergerac, the play, it should be that is our fatal flaw as a culture, is that we emphasize beauty over substance. And that could lead us all to the same sad, tragic end to which it led our friend Cyrano de Bergerac. Watch the movie, won't you? Starring Jose Ferrer, directed by Stanley Kramer. The movie's not great, but the play is sensational. Read the play if you like. The American translation is done by a man called Hooker. There is a French translation that's significantly different. Check that out, and also check out this show. It's Quotes and Quips. It's going to be going on throughout 2025. It alternates every Monday with my other new show, Fletcher Rhoden's Pet Peeves. They're both here on alternating Mondays on this YouTube channel at noon. The reruns stay up. You can also find reruns of last year's show, Quotes and Quips. The full year's run is still up. And the year before that, 2023, I had a show called Tracking the Lone Wolf. And it's on its own YouTube channel called Tracking the Lone Wolf. I make reference to it often on this show. That's a book you should read or enjoy in one of its many formats, paperback, Kindle, or audiobook format. You can get that at Amazon.com. If you want, go to my website where there's a link right to my author's page. You can peruse all my books. Check out all my stuff and tune in again. Until then, bye, Mary.